I'm Jennifer Brett, a program assistant at the Pendleton County Extension Office. And we're going to be starting up again our nutrition series, and that way you guys can get your vouchers. And we're going to try to add some different things in this year to help you to be healthier and to try to eat a little bit better, because we all can have struggles with that at times. So today we're going to kind of start with some foods that are going to help keep our immune system healthier. I know that you guys had a video recently that you watched on self-care, and with that they talked about getting enough sleep and being physically active, which are very important to do, and also the nutrition that goes with that. And sometimes they kind of just generalize it and say, eat the rainbow. Well, what does that really mean? So we're going to dig a little bit deeper into some of these foods that are going to help us keep our immune system a little bit healthier. Now, the immune system is very important in our body. A lot of it has to do with what we eat. And so we need to have specific foods. Now, fiber is very good for our immune system because most of our immune system lives in our gut. And so if we're not getting enough fiber and we're not regular with our bowel movements, then that causes our immune system to not work as well. So we want to stay regular and get enough fiber to help do that. And then there are some other specific nutrients, vitamins and minerals, that are going to help that as well. So we're going to go through some of these. And there's a handout that I had made that the Senior Center has to give out. Some of you might already have it. Some of you might need to still get it. So we're going to go through some of these foods and some of these nutrients, and that way you can help keep your pantry stocked with some of these foods, okay? So the first one we're going to touch on is vitamin C. We all know vitamin C is going to help us keep from getting a cold, or help us get over a cold a little bit better, and that's still important. That's tried and true science that has been around forever. Now, what do we think first when we think vitamin C? We think oranges, right? So we've got oranges that we can eat, orange juice. Both of those are good ways. But any other citrus fruit is also good. So lemons, limes, grapefruit, those are all citrus foods that are going to help us get some vitamin C. Now, while we might sit down and eat an orange, we're not going to sit down and eat a lemon. But if you add lemon to your fish, if you add lemon when you're making your pancakes in the morning, you add lemon to a cake you're making, have some lemonade. Any way that you get actual lemon into what you're eating or drinking is going to help give you that vitamin C. So we don't need to sit and chew on a lemon. Now, it can be good. I like lemons. Same with limes. That's something we typically would just add to something. One thing we can do with lemons and limes is just have a container of water sitting in our fridge with some sliced lemons and or limes or oranges in it. And that vitamin C is going to be in that water that we're going to be drinking. So that's a good way to get vitamin C. Also, things like tomatoes are high in vitamin C. Green peppers. And these are things that we can add to a salad. We can add to our eggs in the morning. We can add to a stir fry. We can add to our spaghetti sauce. So lots of different ways to eat tomatoes and peppers other than just eating a tomato and a pepper, right? Also things like dark green leafy vegetables like collard greens, kale, spinach, things like that. As well as broccoli and asparagus and fresh peas. Now, canned peas kind of lose a lot of their nutritional value. Frozen peas are okay, but in the summertime, if you can get some fresh ones at the farmer's market or grow them in a garden, that's the best way to get the vitamin C. Some other fruits that have vitamin C would be strawberries or raspberries, as well as kiwi fruit and cantaloupe. Kiwi fruit is a good fruit that's a single portion size. So that's a good thing to have on hand. To eat a kiwi, we can just slice it in half and take a spoon and scoop out the inside to eat. Or if we would rather peel it, that's okay too. But again, as I said, that's a nice little one portion size fruit, kind of like an orange, that we can just grab and eat. Whereas a cantaloupe, if we're by ourselves, we're not going to eat a whole cantaloupe very well. So try to get something like a cantaloupe. If you're having company over, put some in a fruit salad with some other things that make it, that way it'll last longer than just sitting in your fridge as a cantaloupe. But anything like that that you buy that's more than one serving size, go ahead and cut it up and put it in your fridge in a container. And then you're more likely to nibble on that as a snack, because we don't want to always take the time to cut that. So if we kind of do that when we bring it home from the grocery store, and then it's ready for us to use when we want it. Another vitamin that is good for our immune system is vitamin A, and in particular the beta-carotene part of vitamin A. So vitamin A we think of as things that are red and orange, and that's one of the reasons they say eat the rainbow, to make sure we're getting those red and orange fruits and vegetables in there. So things like tomatoes, again, that fits in the red and orange category. Sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes are good to eat baked as sweet potato fries. We can make mashed sweet potatoes. I like to chop some up in cubes and put them with regular white potatoes and like butternut squash, and kind of roast them in the oven with a little bit of olive oil and herbs. So a sweet potato was a little much to eat at one time, but that's something that you can cut in half, use half of one way one day, and the next day use half another way, and then it doesn't seem like you're eating leftovers. Things like prunes. Prunes are good for us, both for the fiber and for the vitamin A. So you can get prunes individually wrapped, or you can get them in a bigger bag. Once you open it, it's best to keep it in the fridge, but that's a good snack to have on hand as well. Prunes have all kinds of good vitamins and minerals in them, as well as the vitamin A. Even things like papayas. I got this to show to a preschool class, so we'll show it to you guys as well. I already chopped off the top in the other lesson I was doing. So if you've never had a papaya before, it might be something you would like to try. They're actually quite tasty. So you would want to slice it, and it's kind of long. It was probably about this long to begin with. So you want to cut it into maybe quarters, and then you can slice the skin off. And it's probably better to do this down on the cutting board, not up in the air. But you'd slice the skin off, and then I'm just going to cut a chunk out of it here, because we don't want to eat these seeds that are in the middle. So while the watermelon seeds you could eat, these ones are kind of a strange texture. So if we just kind of scoop that out, and we want to take the skin off of our papaya. And again, this is something that when we bring it home, we can get this done and put it in a Tupperware type container, Rubbermaid, whatever you have, or even just a Ziploc bag in nice little bite-sized pieces, and store that in the refrigerator. And then we can have that just as a snack to have when we want something to snack on. It'd be good to eat at breakfast. Papaya is actually very good to help with digestion. So maybe you've eaten something that kind of turned your stomach a little bit. If you have a piece of papaya, that might help a little bit, and then you don't have to reach for the Tums quite as much. So a couple other fruits or vegetables that are good with beta-carotene would be any kind of squash, spinach, kale, Swiss chard, any of our dark green lettuces, or salad greens, as well as broccoli. And then also egg yolks, because again, that's a yellow-orange type of a thing. So that also is a good source of vitamin A. We don't want to eat eggs every day, but eggs a couple of times a week have a lot of good nutrients in them. They're good for us to get those nutrients. So make sure you're eating the yolk and not just the white, even though a lot of times different people tell you, oh, just eat the egg white because all the fat's in the yolk. Well, the fat is in the yolk, but so are a lot of the nutrients. So every now and then, make sure you're having that. And then I don't know if I remember if I mentioned apricots, but we're going to talk about those again. So apricots, sometimes you can get fresh around here in the summertime. We actually have an apricot tree at our house. We've only ever had apricots once because they blossom very early, and then a lot of times we get a late frost. So they do possibly grow around here, just not every year. But you can buy them in the store sometimes fresh, or we can usually find some canned apricots, which can be tasty, or dried apricots. Dried apricots are a really good source of vitamin A as well as some iron. So on to the next vitamin. Next we have vitamin D. And vitamin D we get from the sunshine, and it's kind of hard sometimes, especially in the wintertime, to be outside with short sleeves on because we need our skin exposed in order to get the vitamin D for that to process to work in our body. But so this time of year it's starting to get warmer, so it's always good to be outside for 10 to 15 minutes a day without lots of layers on to get our bodies to make that vitamin D. But some ways that we can get some from our diet, because we can't get enough just from the sun, is to drink milk that has vitamin D in it. And any type of milk has vitamin D in it, not just whole milk, which a lot of people call vitamin D milk. Vitamin D is added. It's an added ingredient to all milk. And it's something the government did way back when, because school kids were vitamin D deficient. And so a way to get vitamin D into kids was to add it to milk that they were getting at school. So whether it's low-fat milk, whether it is fat-free milk, whether it is 2% milk, they all have the same amount of vitamin D added to them. So any of those types of milk is fine. If you're drinking almond milk or cashew milk, you would have to check the label because it's not naturally in nuts. So you'd have to see if they're adding that, and the government doesn't require it to be added to those milks, so you might not be getting it from those. But some companies might add it to it. Some orange juice companies add vitamin D to orange juice because they know that people are drinking orange juice, and therefore they can add the vitamin D to that and get some vitamin D into those people. So think of little things like that that might help you get some vitamin D. There are not many foods that naturally have vitamin D in them, but there are a few. So one, if I can find it over here, is some mushrooms. So I don't know about you, but I love mushrooms. I put mushrooms in everything I possibly can. But make sure you're doing mushrooms from the store. Or if you're a mushroom hunter and you know your mushrooms, that's okay. But don't just go out in the woods and pick mushrooms, because a lot of those are poisonous. So mushrooms from the store, portobello mushrooms, little button mushrooms. They're good to stir fry. They're good to saute and add to all kinds of things, or put them in your eggs in the morning. I put them on just about everything. As I said, I love mushrooms. On my pizza, in my stir fries, in my eggs, in my soup. If I'm making homemade soup, I'll add mushrooms to just about anything. And canned mushrooms are okay, but they lose a little bit of the vitamin D during the processing. So fresh ones are better if you can possibly afford them, and if they're good at the store that you're going to. Tuna fish is actually naturally high in vitamin D. So whether we do it in tuna packets or in tuna in the can, if you're doing tuna in the can, get it in the oil, because that's going to have a higher content of vitamin D, because when it's packaged in the water, then some of that is lost in the processing. But vitamin D, like vitamin A, is a fat-soluble vitamin, so you need some fat in your diet to absorb those vitamins. So another thing with vitamin D is to make sure that you're getting some calcium with it, whether you're drinking milk or eating a food that's high in calcium, like salad greens, because vitamin D and calcium work together in our bodies, and we need both or it doesn't do us much good. So just getting the vitamin D without the calcium, or vice versa, just getting the calcium without the vitamin D isn't doing us much good. We need both to work together. And that's another reason they added it to the milk, because calcium is in milk. So therefore the kids had what they needed. Also, egg yolks, again, have vitamin D, and salmon or oysters. So whether it's canned salmon or whether it's fresh salmon, there's going to be some vitamin D in there. Now, maybe you don't like just canned salmon or canned tuna, but maybe you could make a salmon pea wiggle or a tuna casserole, and those would help you to get some tuna and get the vitamin D. So lots of different types of things like that we can do with those. And then, of course, things that are made with milk, like cream and butter. And again, it's fat soluble, so that's why they mention the cream and the butter, because that has more fat in it. So if we're just eating a yogurt, there's not as much vitamin D, because that's just the processing system again. So milk itself is a good way, and then cream or butter, just not too much butter. We don't want saturated fat going too high. Next one on our list is vitamin B6, which is also called pyridoxine. And that is something that is found in bananas, as well as in chickpeas. I didn't bring a can of chickpeas with me, but I did bring some hummus, which is made from chickpeas. So whether you're buying chickpeas, putting them on your salad, putting them in your gumbo or in some stew, chickpeas are good if you pat them dry, like drain them, the can, pat them dry, put a little bit of olive oil with some spices mixed in, to whatever your kind of taste is. I just like usually Italian seasoning and garlic. And then put them in an oven at a very low temperature and bake them for an hour or two until they're kind of dried out. And then you can snack on those. And that's a really good snack, again, to have on hand to get some good vitamins and nutrients and fiber, because chickpeas also are a good source of fiber. Vitamin B6, which is also called pyridoxine, is also in chicken, turkey, salmon, and tuna, as well as fortified breakfast cereals. So if you are eating some Total or some granola or even Trix and Lucky Charms, any of those have been fortified, then there's going to be some vitamin B6 or pyridoxine in that to help get you the amount that you need. Vitamin E is our next vitamin that we're going to talk about. Again, this is another fat-soluble vitamin, and that is again found in green leafy vegetables like kale, collard greens, mustard greens, spinach, things like that. Also in avocados. I'm not sure if you guys are avocado eaters. It's kind of an acquired taste. I already cut this one open to show the other class. But you don't want to eat the outside alligator skin. So you want to cut it open. To de-pit an avocado, you just stick your knife into it. Let me do that down so that I don't poke myself. And then it pops right out. So then you want to peel it. You can either slice it with a little bit of lemon juice and a little bit of salt, or you can mash it up like to make a guacamole. Put it on a hamburger or some grilled chicken is really good. Even hummus on grilled chicken or baked chicken. Spread some hummus on a piece of chicken with a few herbs on there. Put it in the oven to bake. It helps keep it moist, and you're adding the added nutrients of that hummus as well. Whole grains, so anytime that you are eating whole wheat bread or whole oats, any of those types of things, there is naturally vitamin E in that because it's part of the grain. It's the fat that gets removed if it's being processed into white bread. So whole grains have vitamin E, as do nuts and seeds. So I've got some sunflower seeds here, and whether you like to chew off the outsides or you're more like me and you would rather buy them already de-shelled, much easier to eat, and these you can just throw on a salad or eat them as a snack by themselves, put them in your yogurt, all kinds of things you can do with sunflower seeds without having to take the time to shell them between your teeth, which might get stuck in there like mine. Also nuts, I have some walnuts with me, so we've got some walnuts here, but any kind of nuts are good for vitamin E. Cashews, almonds, pecans, macadamia nuts, peanuts, any of those things are a good source of vitamin E. And again, if you don't like to eat nuts by themselves, some of the butters are good, peanut butter, almond butter, hazelnut butter. Or if you can chop them up or buy them already chopped and add them to your zucchini bread or your chocolate chip cookies, or even I put nuts in my oatmeal in the morning. You could add them to your pancake batter, all kinds of different things that you can do with nuts. Or throw them on a salad. I do that a lot too. I like the crunch with it, so I like sunflower seeds and nuts on my salad. Also, any kind of oil like canola, corn, or olive oil, not our animal fats, but our oils, that's a good source of vitamin E. So if you're making a piece of chicken and you don't want to bake it, put it in a saute pan with just a little bit of canola, corn, or olive oil, and that will help you get some of your vitamin E. Or maybe you're going to saute some vegetables because this pepper is too crunchy and hard to eat, but if you saute it with some onions to add to something that you're making, putting them on your hamburger, do that in a little bit of olive or canola or corn oil and not butter, and that's going to help you get some of that vitamin E. The next one we're going to talk about is a mineral, and that is zinc. Zinc is very important for our immune system, and some studies have been done that help show that it helps reduce the length of a cold, and they're starting to do some studies that it helps make COVID not as bad. So zinc is a very important thing to help fight germs. Zinc can be found in any kind of dried beans. So this is the 15 bean soup that I love to make. But even if you wanted just black beans or kidney beans or garbanzo beans, white beans, white chicken chili with a white bean, any type of bean, dried bean, is going to have zinc in it. So pork and beans even is going to have some in it, but the more it's processed, the less likely you are to have a lot of the nutrients. So the least processed, the better. Canned is fine, but by the time they make pork and beans out of it, it's cooked and all that stuff is added to it besides. So again, oysters, crab, clams, lobster, and mussels are a good source of zinc. So if you like any of those types of shellfish, that can be a good source. Maybe if you're going out to the restaurant, have clams now and then, or crab, or have oyster stew like you do for Christmas, or an oyster type of stuffing. So ways to get those foods into something that we might already be eating. Chicken and turkey have zinc, as does red meat. Again, we want leaner meat and not all the fat. And red meat maybe only twice a week, kind of like our eggs. But some red meat is good for us because it actually has vitamin A as well in red meat. It's not the beta-carotene part, a different type of vitamin A, which is needed for our cells. So another way to get zinc, again, is fortified cereals or other fortified breads. So our breakfast cereal that we're eating, even maybe some of the oatmeal might have zinc added to it. So kind of check that out on some of the labels. They don't all mention zinc because it doesn't have to be mentioned, but if they've added it, they'll typically mention it because it's a selling point for them. Then we have antioxidants, which are big germ fighters as well. And those are things that are hard to take out of a substance. It's something you have to certainly eat that substance in order to get those antioxidants. Whereas like vitamin C, you could possibly take a pill to get some vitamin C. Antioxidants, you can't do that. They can't separate that from the food. So foods that have antioxidants are things like berries. So any type of berries, blackberries, blueberries, Saskatoon berries, gooseberries, strawberries, you name it. Any type of berry has good antioxidants in it. Things like pomegranates, excuse me, as well as dried herbs and spices. So if you are cooking anything, have some spices on hand to add. I put basil or Italian seasoning, which is usually basil and parsley and thyme and a couple others mixed together. I put that in just about everything I'm cooking. I put it on my chicken, I put it on my red meat, I put it in my spaghetti sauce, I put it in my soup, I put it in my stew, you name it. I love Italian seasoning. Even things like cinnamon, nutmeg have antioxidants. And cilantro, if you like more of a Mexican kind of spicy, like salsa or something like that, will have a lot of cilantro in it. So fresh is good for herbs, but dried is good as well. And these also have any of the green leafy ones that have been dried are a good source of calcium as well. So if you're trying to get that with your vitamin D, but you're not much of a milk drinker, adding some of these herbs and spices are going to help you absorb that vitamin D because of the calcium in them. Now we also have pecans and walnuts again, so any type of nut has antioxidants in it as well as the vitamin E. And then tea, coffee, and herb tea are all good ways to get antioxidants. And then dark chocolate. So not milk chocolate, not white chocolate, but dark chocolate. The darker it is, the more antioxidants are in it. So if you get one of the big bars of dark chocolate, say at CVS or somewhere, just eat a little bit of it at a time. We don't want to eat that whole big bar of dark chocolate all at once, but a little bit of dark chocolate each day can be good for us. So you can tell them that the dietitian told you dark chocolate can be eaten every day. And then the last thing we're going to talk about is water. So water is very important for our immune system because everything needs to be flowing, and water is a part of every cell in our body. So in order for our immune system to be healthy, we need enough water in our body. So water itself to drink, sometimes water isn't that tasty. So if you want to add some flavor, cut up a lemon or a lime or an orange and put it in a thing of water like I mentioned. Cucumbers make water taste good, or a cucumber mint combination, different things like that. Or even a little bit of Kool-Aid or Crystal Light or something is okay, just not too much sugar. And a little bit of Gatorade powder. Even making iced tea Even if you make an herb tea, like an herbed, I guess I didn't show my tea for the antioxidants, but this is a mint tea, and any of the herb teas you can make iced as well, and they don't have the caffeine in them, but they have those antioxidants, and if it makes you drink more water by having a flavor in it, then that's okay. But there's also some foods that are high in water that help us get our water content as well. So things like watermelon or cucumbers or cantaloupe, celery, and even lettuces have a high water content to them. So that's going to help get some water into our system as well, even if we're not drinking quite enough. I'm not a good water drinker. I have to make myself sometimes, but I'm doing better. And what I do is I get a glass of water and set it there so that I see it, so that I know I need to be drinking this. Because I won't think, oh, I need to go get a drink. So sometimes we need to kind of trick ourselves into doing things like that that are good for us. But that's okay as long as we're doing it. So I hope this lesson has been helpful with those specific fruits and vegetables and other foods that are going to help our immune system to be healthy. A lot of these things you might have on hand. I mostly raided my kitchen to get these things to show. Other than the papaya I had to go buy. Don't typically have papaya in the house, but it is delicious, so I will try to buy it more often. So always good things to have in the pantry, to have on hand. A lot of them are good to snack on. Don't necessarily need to make a meal out of them, but they can be some good snacky foods. So just little tips like that can help to keep us healthy. And I hope to see you hopefully soon in person to do another lesson. Bye-bye.